This is the 8th episode of Flight of the 50 Fancies, and you're listening to it. So I'm trying to keep you on the horn as long as I can. Your ears are important to me. So let's have some fun. Get some wild stuff lined up for you on this one. This is probably the wildest episode yet. Even I don't know what it's going to be about, because it's live. The first thing I wanted to just point out that this is like some headlines. It says, this is on page B6 of the local section, skeletons from an ossuary of alien UFOs destroy the coven of an undead mutant scientist and his cave of vampires. Or no, wait, this is a movie section. Well, this looks like there's a lot of good movies, but none of them, they're not reviews, they're just one-sentence summaries of all these cool movies. Vampiric radioactive devil worshippers raid a spaceship of gigantic demonic grave robbers during their excavation of an undead time traveler's ossuary. Seems kind of overburdened a little bit. Let's look up some more. Cannibalistic nuclear cyborgs hunt a coven of time-traveling, blood-sucking vampires during their excavation of an extra-dimensional undead psycho's family. Now that sounds like the kind of movie for me. And those are the headlines. You're listening to the Flight of the 50 Fancies. I have a fisherman on the phone named Samuel. Say hello, Samuel. Hello, everybody. Glad to be on your show, Peter. And I'm glad to have you here. Samuel, where are you calling from? Do I sound alright? Yeah, you sound fine. The line is coming in just fine. So where are you calling from? I'm actually calling from Nova Scotia, Halifax, to be precise. Catching any fish up there? A few. Now, where'd you go to school? Actually, I never went to school. I'm illiterate. Oh, good. The world needs more people like you. Well, that's what they tell me. I hear you know how to play the lute. Well, I was wondering if you could play the lute right now. That would be really cool to hear. Sure, let me get it ready for you. Okay, that was good. Thanks for that. That actually sounded really good for... Is that what a lute sounds like? I guess I just never heard a lute before. Actually, it's a fisherman's lute. Okay, tell me about that song a little bit. It's called Colazione, and it's by my mother, whose name is Capsberger. She would sing it to me as a boy, when I was a boy. And when did your mother write it? In 1604. 1604, really? It seems more like, not that I know anything about music, but I thought I heard it present with some symptoms of rock and roll in there a little bit. Anyway, it sounded great for coming through the phone like that. Yeah, I don't play my lute unless it'll sound as good as possible to everyone who can hear it, and that includes the fish. Hey, maybe you can answer this question for me that I've been wondering for a while. How come L instruments, or like instruments that start with L, always mean other stuff? Like think about like lyre and lute. Do you know what I'm saying? I have no idea what you're saying. All I know is that I picked that song because I wouldn't have to sing. And why didn't you want to sing? I hate my voice on recordings. Sometimes the labiodental consonants I try to make it's like they don't connect or something, and I sound like a fool. I mean, I hear them connect, but the connection isn't audible, I guess, outside my own head's bone acoustics or something. It sounds to me like my voice, I like to tell people that my voice sounds like it's coming out of a mouth so little that you could pig apple it with a golf ball, and sometimes my voice cracks too, like that. It's getting to the point where I have to disclaim to the people that I'm telling I hate how my voice sounds in recordings, that I also hate when people respond, "Oh, your voice sounds fine." And usually they just answer me, having heard my disclaimer and everything, they just say, "Oh, your voice sounds fine," as if they weren't paying any attention. Well, do you think that's because they're telling you what they really think, and what they really think just happens to be the same thing as what you mentioned the people in your disclaimer say? I would think so, and not that they just can't be bothered to think about what they're saying enough to raise it out of, like, knee-jerk territory if they would acknowledge that I just finished telling them that I've already heard, "Oh, your voice sounds fine," plenty of times before. I mean, like if they said, "The people you mentioned just now are correct in their view that your voice sounds fine," or even just if they said, "Your voice does sound fine," then I wouldn't be bothered. But can you imagine saying the following? I hate how my voice sounds on recordings, and I also hate how, whenever I tell people that, they all just say, "Oh, your voice sounds fine," with a maddeningly similar inflection, and then hearing this response, "Oh, your voice sounds fine." Okay, I don't normally say this to a guest, but you're going to have to go ahead and shut the up, because this is the absolute dumbest problem I've ever heard. They're just trying to be nice, for God's sake, and it doesn't sound like you make it easy for them. The fact that they care so little about the subject of your voice means that it's not a problem, and I can't even believe you couldn't figure that out yourself. Some people are mute. Some people lose their jaws. Hang on, breaking news. This podcast, FOTFF, has just been nominated in 7 categories by the PCPA, aka the People's Choice Podcast Awards. We've been nominated for the Most Self-Satisfied Podcast Host Award, the highest number of self-awareness levels in a podcast, the most embarrassing and pointless obsession with self-awareness in a podcast, the most obvious use of self-awareness as a humiliation preempting device, the most delusional overestimation of a podcast's popularity/influence despite all the chatter about self-awareness, the most rapid fetishization of self-awareness by a podcast, and the loosest use of the word podcast. We're gonna win. We gotta win 7, 1 out of 7. Come on, it's party time.
Celebration, 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 celebration. There's magic all around, it's soothing fantasy. The world out long ago, the faraway yesterday. Sweet living and love in this world wearing. Sweet singing, swinging down that golden road, the laughter echoing to the air.
So it's gonna be like public radio where I play this really cool song, but then I don't say anything about it, and you can't find out what it is. And I'm with my friend Samuel, the fisherman from Nova Scotian. Actually, so what's the demonym for Nova Scotia? Like, is that it? Nova Scotian? Yep, that's right. And I don't want to earn myself another upbraiding or anything, and I want to congratulate you on your nominations. I can't imagine anyone else getting those categories. But I also wanted to mention something. Never mind. No, come on, tell me, what is it? Well, all the kind of self-referential jokes that you're making. First of all, I feel like it's a little too early. Your show is only like a couple weeks old at this point. It just seems kind of obnoxious. Moreover, it seems kind of presumptuous. I've been working on a theory of my own about self-referential text. It seems like when a text or a podcast, whatever, a podcast, when it begins to kind of like fold in and refer to itself, there's a sort of this default humility in it that's just totally murdered. Wait, what do you mean text, Sam? I thought you were illiterate. Well, I am illiterate, but at the lodge there's a very gifted storyteller who sits near the fire, and he tells old folk tales and folk essays and folk experimental text poetry. So I get a lot of exposure to this kind of theory, that is folk theory. Oh, great. Well, we gotta go. Actually, hold on. They said you gotta tell a story. How about what's the biggest fish you ever caught? I know you probably get that, every time you get interviewed, someone probably... No, listen, I do. I know what you're gonna say. You're gonna say I always get that question, but I'm happy to answer it because it's actually a very interesting story. You see, the biggest fish I caught wasn't actually even a fish. It was a tiny little porpoise, and it was about the size of a cat. And I know you may be wondering whence Bergman's law, which according to Thompson's book on growth and form is that, let's see, the far north is a home of large birds but not of small. Bears but not mice live through an Arctic winter. The least of the dolphins live in warm waters, and there are no small mammals in the sea. And this is true except for what I saw, which was the biggest fish. It wasn't very big. It was much bigger than any fish I caught, but it was smaller than any dolphin. Wait, did you understand my question? Sort of. All I'm saying is that I had the fish in my sights. And it wasn't a fish, it was a dolphin, or a porpoise. I had the porpoise in my sights, and it spoke to me, and it said, I shall grant you 4 wishes if you shall set me free. And I thought about this for a moment, and of course, 10 Canadian bucks says, can guess what I asked the porpoise first, Peter. I bet you asked it why it was offering you 4 wishes, correct. And it said to me that all of its brothers and sisters were killed and devoured by Nova Scotian fishermen. And if they had all said, set me free and I shall give you 3 wishes, but 3 was not enough, and all of the fishermen ate those porpoises. They slurped them up by their smooth little tails, and they ate them like shrimp, because when you cook a small porpoise, it curls up like a little C or a little G and looks like a shrimp. And they did eat the shrimp. Porpoises. I didn't remember. Honestly, I don't remember any of that happen. I feel like I would have, down at the lodge, I would have heard a tale or two about cooking and eating I mean, I knew all the fishermen around, so I figured they would have mentioned something about cooking and devouring porpoises. They didn't say it, though. It doesn't matter. I'm just repeating what the porpoise told me. And this sounds a lot like a tall tale to me. Listen, you take it up with my memory. You know what I'm saying? Like, if you don't believe me, you just talk to my memory about it. See what my memory has to say. And I let it go. I said, sure, I wanted 4 wishes. I could have used a nice... There's a sweet lure called the billy witch lure, because I guess some fishies like to eat billy witches, which are kind of beetle for you Yanks, you southern Yanks who don't know that. And the coolest part about the billy witch lure, I guess most lures look like what the fish wants to eat. It'd be kind of like if we saw this dangling steak or whatever coming out of the sky and just thinking like, I might as well take a little bite, I guess. And then bam, you're in a UFO. But billy witch lure ruled. It was all black and shiny, and it was, I think there's like patent leather siding and cherry wood decals, and I saw my buddy use it once. He had one. It got lost in the deep though, and all the fish for miles around just fled from the parts of the sea that did not contain the billy witch. I want it so bad. I wish I had my lute. I was gonna like wail on my lute. You know what I'm saying, man? It was just excellent. That was back in 79. Good year for the billy witch. That's also when my story about the porpoise happened too, which I'll return to it at once. And, I had 2 other things I wanted, and I let it go, and it slipped away. It didn't offer me anything. It could talk, but it could not give me wishes. But I'm not complaining because it was pretty cool. It was an excellent trick of the sea, really. So I hope that answers your question. Well, kind of. So I got kind of a long letter that I haven't read, so here it is. It's sent to me. The address is named Herman Jacoby, and he just says quickly, "Hi Peter, I hope you read this on the air. I translated it from Ganadhar Sudhar Swami and his book, the Sutra Kirtanga. So this is called 5th lecture, 1st chapter, book 2, Sutra Kirtanga. I once asked the Kavalan, the great sage, what is the punishment in the hells? Knowing it, O sage, tell it me who do not know. How do sinners go to hell? When I thus questioned the illustrious Kasyapa, the omniscient one spoke as follows. I shall describe the truly insupportable pains where there is distress and the punishment of evil deeds. Those cruel sinners who from a desire of worldly life commit bad deeds will sink into the dreadful hell which is full of dense darkness and great suffering. He who always kills movable and immovable beings for the sake of his own comfort, who injures them, who takes what is not freely given, who does not learn what is to be practiced. The impudent sinner who injures many beings without relenting will go to hell at the end of his life. He will sink to the place of darkness. Head downwards he comes to the place of torture. They hear the cries of the punishers. Beat, cut, split, burn him. The prisoners in hell lose their senses from fright and do not know in what direction to run. Going to a place like a burning heap of coals on fire, and being burnt they cry horribly. They remain there long, shrieking aloud. Have you heard of the horrible river Vaitarani, whose cutting waves are like sharp razors? They cross the horrible Vaitarani, being urged on by arrows and wounded with spears. The punishers pierce them with darts. They go in the boat, losing their memory. Others pierce them with long pikes and tridents, and throw them on the ground. Some round whose neck big stones are tied are drowned in deep water. Others again roll about in the Kadambavaluka River, or in burning chaff, and are roasted in it. And they come to the great impassable hell, full of agony, called Asurya, where there is a great darkness, where fires placed above, below, and all around are blazing. There, as in a cave, being roasted on the fire, he is burned, having lost in the reminiscence of his sins and consciousness of everything else, always suffering, he comes to that miserable hot place that is ever ready for the punishment of evildoers. Okay, that's enough. You win, Mr. Jacoby. I'm not gonna read the rest of this for obvious reasons. Too scary. Good night, everyone. Sweet dreams.